to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive.
The clash between Sonny Hostin, Charlie Kirk, and Megyn Kelly wasn't just a fleeting moment of media drama. It was a masterclass in dismantling a carefully curated persona through precision, facts, and unrelenting scrutiny. It all started when Hostin, a co-host on The View, took aim at a Turning Point USA summit, where 5,000 young people gathered to hear conservative speakers. The event, a vibrant display of political engagement, drew Hostin's ire not because of its substance, but because of what it represented, a challenge to the narrative she and her platform often push. Instead of acknowledging the energy of thousands of young attendees traveling across the country during a time of high gas prices and costly flights, Hostin and her colleagues opted to smear the event, painting it as a gathering of dangerous extremists. The accusation wasn't just a slight against Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA. It was a broad swipe at the students, many of them high school and college-aged, who dared to align with conservative ideas. The reasoning behind this smear, as Kirk pointed out, was simple. If The View's audience saw the truth, that thousands of young people were motivated enough to attend a conservative summit despite economic challenges, it might force them to question the stereotypes they've been fed about conservative voters. It might humanize the very people Hostin's platform often dismisses as uneducated or misguided. To prevent that, Hostin leaned into a familiar playbook, labeled the opposition as extreme, dangerous, or morally bankrupt. It's a tactic that thrives in echo chambers, where applause drowns out scrutiny. But this time, she miscalculated. She didn't just take on Kirk. She invited the sharp, unrelenting response of Megyn Kelly, and together they delivered a takedown so precise it left Hostin's carefully crafted image in tatters. The fallout wasn't just about one event or one comment. It was about exposing a deeper pattern in Hostin's public persona, a reliance on selective outrage, moral posturing, and a willingness to bend facts to fit a narrative. Kirk and Kelly didn't need to scream or resort to theatrics. They brought something far more devastating: receipts. Kirk, with his data-driven approach, laid out the inconsistencies in Hostin's rhetoric, while Kelly, with her courtroom-honed precision, dissected the contradictions in Hostin's moral grandstanding. Together, they didn't just challenge Hostin's claims, they unraveled the very foundation of her media brand. Hostin's attack on the Turning Point USA summit wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a broader strategy to dismiss conservative ideas by attacking the people who hold them. By framing the summit as a haven for extremism, she aimed to discredit not just Kirk, but the thousands of young attendees who traveled to engage in political discourse. The implication was clear. These kids, many of whom were still in high school, were either dangerous or duped. But Kirk flipped the script. He didn't just defend himself, he defended the students. He pointed out the absurdity of smearing teenagers for their political engagement, especially when those same teenagers are navigating a world of economic hardship to attend such events. The accusation wasn't just unfair, it was reckless, and Kirk made sure to highlight the human cost. These students, he argued, would now carry the weight of being labeled extremists, a shadow cast over their futures by a daytime TV host chasing clout. Kirk's response was strategic. He didn't engage in a shouting match or trade insults. Instead, he brought up the possibility of legal action, referencing the Covington Catholic case, where a student won a significant settlement after being smeared by media outlets. The comparison wasn't just a flex, it was a warning. Kirk signaled that he and Turning Point USA were prepared to fight back, not just with words, but with the kind of legal firepower that could cost networks like ABC millions. The threat of a lawsuit wasn't about personal vendettas. It was about accountability. Hostin's comments weren't just an attack on Kirk, they were an attack on the students, and he made it clear that he wouldn't let that slide. But the real devastation came when Megyn Kelly entered the fray. Kelly, a former attorney and seasoned journalist, didn't need to raise her voice to make her point. She approached Hostin's rhetoric like a prosecutor dismantling a weak case. Kelly zeroed in on Hostin's broader pattern of behavior, particularly her tendency to label conservative voters, especially those without college degrees, as uneducated or ignorant. Hostin's comments on The View about the 2024 election results were a case study in this. She remarked that uneducated white women and certain minority groups had voted for Donald Trump, implying that their choices were rooted in ignorance rather than conviction. Kelly didn't just call this out, she eviscerated it. With her trademark calm, she laid out the hypocrisy. Hostin, a Notre Dame Law School graduate with a son at Harvard, was quick to dismiss working-class voters as uneducated, all while basking in the privileges of her elite education and wealth. Kelly's takedown was surgical. She didn't need to yell or sling insults. She simply presented the facts: Hostin's lavish lifestyle, her multi-million-dollar home featured in People magazine, her Ivy League connections. These weren't cheap shots, they were evidence of a disconnect. Hostin's narrative of fighting for the oppressed rang hollow when juxtaposed with her own privilege. Kelly exposed the contradiction at the heart of Hostin's brand. She positioned herself as a champion of justice while dismissing the very people, working-class men and women, who make up the backbone of the country. It wasn't just about Hostin's comments on the summit. It was about a broader pattern of elitism dressed up as empathy. Kirk complimented Kelly's precision with his own brand of relentless fact-checking. He didn't just focus on Hostin's summit smear, he zoomed out to show how her outrage was selective. When conservatives were involved, Hostin was quick to condemn, painting them as threats to democracy. But when her own side faced scrutiny, she was conspicuously silent. Kirk pointed to specific examples, voting records, public statements, and media appearances where Hostin dodged inconvenient truths. He didn't need to embellish. The data spoke for itself. Hostin's moral high ground, he argued, was less about principle and more about performance. Her outrage spiked when it served her brand, but when the facts didn't align, she pivoted to silence or deflection. What made this takedown so effective was its restraint. Neither Kirk nor Kelly resorted to the kind of bombast that dominates modern media. They didn't need to. Kirk brought the numbers, voting patterns, turnout data, and the sheer scale of the summit's attendance. Kelly brought the context, weaving together Hostin's own words and actions to reveal a pattern of hypocrisy. Together, they painted a picture of a media personality whose truth was less about facts and more about what played well on air. Hostin's brand relied on applause, not accountability, and when faced with real scrutiny, it crumbled. The brilliance of this moment wasn't just in the execution, it was in the strategy. Kirk and Kelly didn't need to share a stage with Hostin or engage in a live debate. They operated from their own platforms, using podcasts, social media, and interviews to deliver their critique. This wasn't a traditional media showdown with moderators and time limits. It was a decentralized dismantling conducted across multiple channels. Hostin, accustomed to the controlled environment of the Views set, was unprepared for this kind of attack. She was used to delivering monologues, not defending them. And when the receipts started piling up, her usual tactics, deflection, outrage, or pivoting to a new talking point fell flat. Hostin's persona thrives in a specific ecosystem, daytime TV, where emotional appeals and moral posturing often outweigh substance. She's mastered the art of delivering fiery one-liners that resonate with her audience, but those same one-liners don't hold up under scrutiny. Kirk and Kelly exposed this by refusing to play her game. They didn't engage in emotional theatrics or try to outshout her. Instead, they let her own words and actions speak for themselves. Kirk highlighted the human cost of her summit smear, the impact on young students labeled as extremists. Kelly pointed to the privilege underlying Hostin's rhetoric, from her elite education to her multi-million-dollar home. Together, they stripped away the veneer of moral authority, revealing a performer more concerned with ratings than reality. This wasn't just a takedown of Hostin, it was a critique of the broader media landscape that enables her. The View, like many mainstream platforms, thrives on simplified narratives and selective outrage. It's a space where complex issues are reduced to sound bites, and dissenters are dismissed as ignorant or dangerous. Kirk and Kelly didn't just challenge Hostin's comments, they challenged the system that amplifies them. They showed how media personalities can weaponize emotion to avoid accountability, and how that strategy falls apart when faced with facts. The irony is that Hostin's own background, a successful attorney with a prestigious education, should have made her a formidable debater. But her reliance on performance over substance left her vulnerable. She's built a career on delivering rehearsed outrage, not engaging with opposing views. When Kirk and Kelly came armed with data and precision, she had no answer. Her usual tools, moral grandstanding, emotional appeals, and deflecting to the next topic were useless against opponents who refused to play by the rules of daytime TV.